Back at IFA, we got a nice little surprise in the form of an actual unit that was announced at the event, and then the storm of phones and announcements rolled in shortly after. But now we can finally bring you our thoughts on what has turned out to be a pretty great phone. It's Joshua Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And this is the Huawei Ascend Mate 7. Huawei has succeeded in design in the past, and this time continues to do so with a larger offering in the Mate 7. It's hard to get past the 6-inch screen, but once you browse around the device, you'll find a very well-constructed metallic frame with a nice industrial look and feel. The buttons are nice and meaty on the side, with the power button below the volume rockers this time for easier access, and there's a decided lack of elements used solely for decoration. There's no capacitive keys on the Mate 7, making for a very nice screen-to-panel ratio. And on the back, where you'll find the main addition to an otherwise metallic body, is the fingerprint scanner. This is the press type rather than a swipe, and it rests squarely below the camera optics, which do stick out just a little bit. All in all, this is a very attractive device, and Huawei has once again proved that they have a good design language. When using one hand, it is simply unwieldy, however. Good luck getting around the top elements of the phone, even if you have larger hands sometimes. Thankfully, there are some software features that help to alleviate this, but we'll get to that later. Metal really seems to be the trend in this flagship smartphone season, and it does help the Mate 7 score some good style points. We've already mentioned the 6-inch screen and its implications on handling, but make no mistake, this is a very good panel. 1080p resolution on this display brings a pretty awesome experience. Larger screens often get a bad rap for size, but then are equally heralded for bringing a nice media experience, and that's exactly what goes on here. Contrast is where it should be, where the brightness keeps everything quite visible throughout any condition. You can change what the color temperature of the display is, but the default setting is already good enough, and I never needed to tamper with it one bit. As far as performance goes, Huawei tends to make performance their own responsibility with in-house packages, and that's what we get in the Mate 7 as well. A high silicon Kirin 925, as it is called, brings a 1.8 GHz quad-core Cortex-A15 together with another quad-core Cortex-A7 clocked in at 1.3 GHz, both working in conjunction to bring very optimized power. It doesn't slip off the tongue as easily as, let's say, Snapdragon, but it is certainly as fast as one. Getting through the various elements of the Emotion UI is a breeze, as are all app experiences including gaming. I seriously don't see much lag at all when doing my general multitasking, with the only hiccup being in the recent app screen, but that's okay because we know that it has to load the screen previews before actually presenting the grid. In hardware, there is one main story to the Mate 7, but we'll touch on that last, pun intended. As far as internals go, this is still a phone available primarily outside of North America, but my unit was still able to connect to LTE networks on T-Mobile and AT&T. It does struggle with keeping the connection from time to time, but otherwise the mobile network experience has been pretty reliable. Call quality is also good, with calls coming in quite clear for both ends. A micro SD card slot does bolster the included 16 or 32 GB of storage, and as far as RAM goes, the respective storage options will get you either 2 or 3 GB of memory respectively. Include all of the usual smartphone goodies like Bluetooth and NFC, and you'll find the standard package underneath the hood. Battery life proved to be worthy of the big phone stereotype, as the Mate 7 survived 2 days before clocking out with above moderate usage. If my screen on time was doubled, a solid day and a half of heavy usage would still be possible. But nestled right on the body, on the back, is probably Huawei's biggest claim to fame with their newest flagship, the fingerprint scanner. Similar to the HTC One Max's iteration, the Mate 7 requires a touch input rather than swipes, and its setup does look familiar to that of iOS. But what makes the fingerprint reader on the Mate 7 so lovely is the fact that once you have it set up, you can use it at any time to unlock the phone. Otherwise, you'll be sticking with the traditional 4-digit code. Even from the prone standby position, holding a finger to the area for just a second will wake and unlock the device, making access that much easier. For a while now, I've talked about fingerprint scanners being an even easier and faster way of getting into your device. With some other iterations, if it takes twice as long for me to get into the phone when I'm using my finger, then I'm probably not going to use it. But Huawei really did get it right here by allowing you to just use the fingerprint scanner to get right into the phone, and I think that a lot of other manufacturers can really learn a thing or two from Huawei's implementation. A 13 megapixel shooter adorns the rear, while another 5 megapixel iteration now graces the front of the Mate 7. A few nice modes are available for either shooter. All focus is another take on the depth of field snapping that takes a few pictures at different focus levels that you can then pick from. A great panorama mode stitches together an entire scene quite well and yields some large files. HDR is available, but in my shooting I found it to do pretty much nothing to enhance most photos. And finally, there is a feature where you can quickly double tap the volume down button in order to get a really quick shot off. It's more about speed than quality here though, so focus will almost always be off, and you can only hope that you framed your shot correctly. So what the phone will go out of its way to tell you was a 1.2 second capture time will probably turn into 4 times that when afterwards you work to get the right focus and then finally take the proper shot. And then on the front, the usual beauty mode found on Asian camera apps returns, bringing real-time blemish hiding. And for a better looking self-portrait, a small box appears in the top left to help you actually look in the lens's direction. As far as quality goes, I found the Mate 7 to have a more than decent shooter. Details are well captured, and noise levels even in night settings don't destroy most images. The interface is pretty simple to navigate through, so I wasn't fidgeting too hard for what I wanted, and in most cases just picking up and shooting yielded a pretty nice shot. Even the front-facing camera proved to be a good shooter, though I'm still wary of the beauty modes. Nonetheless, having a higher megapixel count for self-portraits seems to be the trend now, and the Mate 7 does not disappoint in that department. As I get into the software portion, let's get one thing out of the way right now. No, there is no app drawer. However, given how much the Emotion UI has matured, that actually doesn't matter as much. Emotion has kept its flat, simple interface, and as such you'll be making use of folders a lot. But get underneath the home screens and you'll find a plethora of small yet useful additions. For one thing, using a phone this size is helped a bit by a one-hand interface that can be moved around by holding a finger down on the screen and then tilting the phone left or right. It's definitely not a perfect implementation, but it has come in handy in a pinch. A button made just for bringing down the notification shade became an immediate and lasting addition to my navigation bar. Small details consistently made me say, "Oh, that's cool," in the interface, like the gallery, where you can drag down to open a quick camera interface, or the notification dropdown, which has a nice way of presenting, chronologically, your received notifications. And if you think about it for a bit, elements of the Emotion UI look like what we will probably find in the upcoming Android L. Forward thinking on Huawei's part makes this KitKat-powered Android one of the nicest iterations, even if it doesn't have an app drawer. And all of this is themable through a built-in application, though only a limited number of themes are available in mine at the moment. Of all the Asian iterations of the Android interface, Emotion might be one of the best we've used. With a few key features included that actually prove useful, its snappy minimalism is undeniable. The Mate 7 will cost you a pretty penny, albeit an expected one, of around $700, especially when imported from the markets it is currently available in. North American users still have to wait for their release, but Huawei has expressed a strong desire to move into more Western markets. Obvious competitors for the Mate 7 are large form factor phones, but we have to put into consideration the Quad HD behemoths that simply overpower the Mate in screen resolution. But in all other respects, Huawei has proven that they can stand elbow to elbow with the rest. And so, there you have it, the Huawei Ascend Mate 7, the biggest offering from Huawei in more ways than one. After some really solid mid-range offerings, we're happy to see Huawei succeed in the flagship space, showing off how they do fingerprint scanning in particular. But their Android iteration is certainly no slouch and proves to be a snappy, pleasing experience as well. Even the in-house processing package brings the performance you want with the battery life big phone users require. If you want to get the most out of the Mate 7, setting up the fingerprint reader is a must, and then you'll find that its quickness and ease of use permeates throughout the phone. Well, minus the large size. But given the direction the smartphone flagship market has been going, we're not surprised that Huawei put everything into their latest and greatest, and their success is exactly why we give it the Editor's Choice Award, for making it crystal clear that Huawei is actually a real threat to the current smartphone kings in the game today. As always, thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this review of the Huawei Ascend Mate 7. I still feel the same way today as I did back at IFA in Berlin when I first set up that fingerprint scanner. I think it's a wonderful iteration, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see it on more phones to come. In any case, stay tuned to Android Authority for even more, not only about the Huawei Ascend Mate 7, but more about all of the other flagships coming out in the coming weeks. Stay tuned here, drop us some likes on our videos, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We're getting close to that 1 million mark, so you guys stay tuned for all of the content we have because of that wonderful celebration we're about to have. So keep it tuned here, and remember that Android Authority is your source for all things Android.